Great question.
You are live.
Good morning. It is May 13th. Senate Judiciary. We are taking up page 105. We have ledge counsel with us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ben O'Grosky for the Office of Legislative Counsel. Before the committee is H105. Draft 2.1 is the most recent version that was put together. However, over the last few days, the Court Administrator's Office distributed the most recent draft to the Judicial Bureau, and the presiding hearing officer there had a bunch of suggestions for you all to consider. But just to kind of go over them, suggested adding a few more definitions to the definition section. So like alcohol concentration, the definition of alcohol, restricted driver's license, and terms associated with sort of the .02 violations. But also essentially a wholesale reorganization of 656 to, on the one hand, have it play out logically. You have definitions and prohibited conduct, notice of violation, notice of suspension. Kind of the statute would proceed essentially along the lines of the procedure itself that it's laid out. But those are substantial changes to make. They could be done, obviously, and mostly not really substantively outside of those definitions that I mentioned, but just as far as the work that just needs to be done to bring about the wholesale reorganization.
So just to summarize, the two main suggestions were adding several definitions, and the other suggestion was a wholesale reorganization of the entire process.
Well, that's just the statutes that we're combining, and some of the, I think, testified to objectives of this legislation is to streamline and consolidate all the various underage possession, procurement, impaired driving statutes, cannabis and alcohol alike. And so I think that the suggestion to do the full reorganization, since you're consolidating the statutes, also reorganize the statute itself to accommodate all of it.
I think in terms of the reorganization, that's certainly not opposed to it, but I don't know that that amount of work is something that we want to do in the final week of morning committees in the Senate. But I can see how adding those definitions that were mentioned, that could be helpful. I imagine it's also not a huge lift.
No, it's just adding them and cross-referencing them to Title 23 statutes, essentially.
Okay.
Similar to what has been done in draft 2.1, just adding a few more.
Any thoughts on this?
I second the remark about the dwindling number of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One thing for future changes overall. I know we have time.
All right. I think if we could add the definitions that were mentioned by the judge, and we can hold off on the reorganization of the statute for next session. And then I think we could load it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a rough timeline of when you might be able to add the definition?
I could do it this afternoon and then send it to the editors and do the timeline tomorrow if that works.
Yeah, thank you. Will, do we have anything else after S87 tomorrow?
Yeah.
I have. So. Let's look at your. What's your availability like tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning. Might be booked up all morning.
Gotcha. Okay. What else do we have availability? It's Thursday, I want to do S12. It will take a lot of time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that I could see if I could speak to the House Judiciary about tomorrow morning, because they're trying to get out ahead of H 105 and take testimony on Thursday.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would probably be delayed if you need some extra time too, so I can try to coordinate with them and get back to you.
Yeah, I think it'll only take 10 minutes at most for you to
Right.
come do the definitions with us and then we'll vote it out.
And I might have some availability at 9.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because it's slated for H 41 discussion, but that actually may go to the floor any minute instead.
Okay.
So
If we want to try for 9 a.m. tomorrow, again, I don't think it'll take more than 10 minutes. We can go into Michelle Child's testimony of what they did to S87. And then we'll vote out 105 person tomorrow morning.
okay, yeah, that works for me, and I'll just check with House Judiciary and let you know if there are any issues.
Okay, sounds good.
That's just on the definition piece of it, right?
Yeah, just adding the definitions. And actually, just one more time, can you just run through now that we have full committee, what the definitions were? That would save some time.
That are being suggested, yes. So alcohol concentration as defined in 23 VSA 1200, alcohol defined in the same statute, cannabis would have the same meaning as referenced in Title 7 in another place. Ignition interlock device, ignition interlock restricted driver's license, ignition interlock RDL or RDL or ignition interlock certificate. And I believe that's it. So just those alcohol related definitions.
Sounds good. So let's add those. Let's see if there are any objections. I don't think there are, but yeah, and then we'll just hear from you tentatively at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Actually, it until get Michelle in 222. How was there any substantial testimony on Friday? The day that I was gone. For I think the office of racial equity was it.
No, I don't think, I mean, they listen to their concerns, actually, I wrote them down, I don't have that folder, but
One thing I found surprising was they testified that we should remove section J,
remove section
Altogether.
Yep.
which was the
Judge ordering.
yeah, allowing the judge to order education for a program.
Mandatory course, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't have a problem with, I think I wasn't there. They had the ability to do that anyways, if you know, to send them to a program, whatever.
Yep.
And then you said, just complete things.
I did subsequently hear from the network, whose preference would be to sort of meet in the middle and leave it as it is, as a civil offense, not a criminal offense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah, I was Michelle's gonna head over there.
Yeah, and that wasn't on the sucker. They reached out to me personally. I just wanted to put that into the room.
Yeah, it seems odd to take away the judge's powers. But it seems I can understand why we would criminalize people if they didn't do it. So the civil route, which was the way the bill was framed originally.
Yes, that is just leaving it alone.
Yeah.
So we've heard from RDAP who said, if you commit the crime, then it should be criminal. We've heard from the officer from the Angela, who said just remove Jane's entirety, and then the other group we heard from the street conflicting I asked that
Unless we
question.
make it a crime.
Yeah.
Civil versus criminal, then remove it entirely, then leave it as criminal, so. I wouldn't have a problem, judges already have the authority, so they just remove it, change.
I
Yeah,
think more
Three
sort of
different
respect
opinions
for
on
that
it, that's what we're-
Yeah.
sense that that's an important.
I mean, I do prefer keeping it civil. I mean, at first glance, I felt it a little strange to have a mandatory class for a civil order. You don't, I mean, I've never seen that, but perhaps it exists elsewhere. But I can, like I said last time, I support the civil aspect of it. If we want to keep it there, not as you train as a criminal, making it criminal if you were to violate it. And we also do have the report coming in, or the report that's part of the bill, talk about, if any changes need to be made a year from now, so.
Decisions.
So the last time we did the straw poll, it was, to support keeping the criminal aspect of it. Seemed like there was a little bit of being on the fence about it, but I think we'll also have some time to hear from other folks. It also sounds like you heard from the network. So, ultimately, I'm going to support the bill unless something drastic changes today, but which I don't think is going to happen. But what if we had to vote on it right now, what are folks' preferences in terms of the DVAP program, Section J, keeping it in entirely, or taking it out, keeping it civil, or keeping it criminal? Any revelations since we last discussed?
And when we say civil, we're including the clarification language. Remember, there was the addition of a clause to clarify
I wrote it down.
that it was rule or something.
Yeah, I think it's rules of family procedure.
I think you're right. I wrote it down. I just have 400 versions of this bill, so the question is, where did I write it down?
That's the bill right from the grid, not. What is what number? 222.
222. That's
Family
right.
Court Rule 60.
Yeah, as set forth in Family Court Rule 16, and that's on, as passed the House, page 6, line. But yeah, I could certainly support adding that clarification and just take it out as.
I can support that.
Not a deal breaker for me. Just saying you got three different, one said take it out. One number that said criminal, one number said civil. We took a straw vote on the criminal aspect of it. So now we're looking at three different. I asked that question specifically. Did you all get together to talk about this? We've got three different answers we're off about.
Yeah. Senator Meadows, any thoughts?
I'm conflicted as it's everybody else seems to be conflicted. Hearing various stakeholders who take it out, they can. That could go either way. I think somebody's gonna be unhappy, whichever way we go, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's so. Sense I'm getting is there aren't particularly strong feelings one way or the other. With with the majority of folks now leaning more so towards having it be civil. That's my opinion as well, and I think. I think what you just mentioned, Senator Bohosky, regarding the network, now saying that they prefer to keep it civil. I think that's an important thing to take into consideration. We could add that clarification, just to make sure there's no confusion in court about family court rule 16. And then we'll also hear next year, I believe it is, about whether or not we should change anything. and to hear if it works the way it's written. And I think it's reasonable that if we're adding this new concept to civil orders, keeping it civil, keeping it a civil violation for now. And if it's not effective, then more than happy to revisit it next year and consider making it criminal if it's not effective in the civil form. Yeah, those are just my internal thoughts on that. So I guess we'll wait for Michelle